Joining me now is Nick Stone, author of a number of celebrated books, including New York Times bestseller and today's Velshi Band Book Club title, Dear Martin. And Nick, I have to start by saying the stuff in your background are all banned books.
Yes. So this is it's a drawing. The artist's name is Jane Mount, and she does these really cool images of book spines. And this is the banned books one.
That's amazing.
You can see my book right there. I
have to say, your book is great, and I enjoyed reading it. I'm puzzled by why it's banned. It's visceral, it's real. I mean, unless you're a super prude, it uses language and references that everybody uses. If any parent doesn't think their kid knows about stuff like this, that's just weird and prudish and out of sync with any. What's your sense of why this book is banned?
Honestly, I think people are afraid. And I say this as a parent myself. I have a fourth grader and a kindergartner. And I understand the impulse and the instinct to want to keep your children safe and innocent. The difference between my children and the parents of children who can cry out against this book is that they have to know the information in the book to stay safe. Mine have to know this information. So my hope is that instead of leaning into this fear that your kids are going to be exposed to something in a book that they're likely already exposed to in the world, parents would lean into the idea of compassion and being interested in other people's stories.
It's interesting. Justice, the character around whom the book is written, his run-in with the white police officer is literally in the first pages of the book. And at one point, it even says, Mama told him how to handle this type of situation, though he must admit he never expected to actually need the advice. Be respectful, keep the anger in check, make sure the police can see your hands, though that's impossible right now because he was handcuffed. And he says, Officer Castillo, I mean no disrespect, and he never even got the words out. A lot of people who read that said that was hard to read for them because we've been watching it on TV. We see videos of that now all the time. This is a 17-year-old black kid who is running into something we now know to actually be real in America all the time. Why can't parents allow their children to know that that's what happens to brown and black kids?
I mean, I think because it's real is part of the reason people are running from it. You know, it's hard to grapple with some of the things that we're seeing on TV. There's a part of the book where Justice's teacher is telling him about why there's this news segment going on, and this guy is on the news talking about Justice being a thug. You know, it's a similar story to what we were seeing over the years as these black boys were shot down by police. Mm-hmm. We get this negative view of them in the media. But what the teacher says is that it's difficult for a lot of people who identify with the aggressor to admit that the aggressor did what they did, because that means that the person who can identify with the aggressor could also potentially do what the aggressor did. Did that make sense? It's like, because I see that you're like me and you did this horrible thing, that means I'm capable of doing this horrible thing. So I'd rather just pretend like you didn't do it.
I want to talk about Justice's letters to Martin Luther King Jr. Diaries or journals are something that actually mental health professionals often suggest as a tool to work through trauma or just actually help with day-to-day life. You were a psych major at Spelman College. Why did you have Justice's entries be directed toward Martin Luther King, which is the title, really, Dear Martin? That's how he starts the letters to Martin Luther King. What was that about? Was that just a journal, or was it a device to do something else?
It was a little bit of both. So I kept a journal when I was in high school, and it was very helpful to me getting through things. But also in 2014, when Michael Brown was killed and the Black Lives Matter movement kicked off, I kept seeing high-profile public figures basically using Dr. King's words to object to things that Dr. King has, on record participated in, right? So He's the father of nonviolent protest. So to see people say things like Dr. King would never take a freeway. Dr. King took quite a few freeways, So I wanted to reclaim his legacy a little bit, because I feel like when we think and talk about Dr. King these days, there's almost this softness to the edges. He was the most disliked man in America in the 1960s. Like we revere him now, but that wasn't the case back then. So having justice right to him and kind of look at his philosophies up close came from me being really angry about hearing Dr. King's quotes misappropriated. I
want to finish with one of the notes that Just writes to dear Martin Luther King. It says, "It's like I'm trying to climb a mountain, but I've got one fool trying to shove me down so I won't be on his level, and another fool tugging at my leg, trying to pull me to the ground he refuses to leave. Jared and Trey are only two people, but after today, I know that when I head to Yale next fall, because I am going there, I'm going to be paranoid about people looking at me and wondering if I'm qualified to be there. How do I work against this, Martin? Getting real with you, I feel a little defeated. Knowing there are people who don't want me to succeed is depressing, especially coming from two directions." You and I made an appointment to have this conversation many weeks ago. And yet, when we heard the confirmation hearings of Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, she said the same thing about her time at Harvard. "I don't know if I belong here. I don't know if I fit in." And someone looked at her and said to persevere. Yeah, it's hard. I grew up similar to Justice. I found myself in spaces where I was the only African-American student. And there are scenes from the book that I pulled from my own life. What I will say, though, is there is hope. If I had to say what the thesis of Dear Martin is, on page 152, there are these two lines. "You can't change how other people think and act, but you're in full control of you. When it comes down to it, the only question that matters is this: if nothing in the world ever changes, what type of person are you going to be?" And Justice kind of has to come to that realization that he is in control of how he sees himself and how he carries himself through the world. Nick Stone, thanks for your patience. It's been a long time waiting to have this conversation with you. Nick Stone is the author of Dear Martin. Keep an eye on Twitter for next week's book. We're going to announce the title and author on Twitter via our page at Velshi MSNBC.